A boy gives his only jacket to a millionaire disguised as a beggar. The next day, he finds a fortune at his door. Leo's breath was visible in the cold Detroit air. The streets were mostly empty, just a few cars driving by and some people rushing to get home before nightfall. He had his hands shoved deep in his pockets, trying to keep them warm. His jacket, though worn, was doing its best to keep the chill off his back. He walked past the laundromat, then the familiar corner store where he sometimes picked up groceries for his mom. The bags under his eyes were heavier today. School had been a drag, and afterward, he'd done an odd job clearing someone's yard. He didn't get much for it, but it was better than nothing. He needed that little extra bit of money. Rent was coming up, and his mom was already stressed. Every penny helped. "Yo, Leo," someone called. He turned to see Mark, a guy from his neighborhood, bundled in a heavy coat and smoking a cigarette. "What's up, Mark?" Leo said, slowing his pace a bit. Mark shrugged. "Same old. Man, you good?" "Yeah, just heading home." Leo gave a small wave and kept walking. "Stay warm, bro. It's freezing out here," Mark shouted after him. "Trying my best," Leo mumbled, more to himself than anyone else. His fingers were stiff, and he flexed them in his pockets to keep them from going numb. As he walked further down Main Street, Leo noticed an old man sitting against the brick wall of an abandoned shop. The man was huddled, arms wrapped around his knees, his face turned down to his chest. He wore layers of thin clothing, but they were clearly not enough. His lips were blue, and he shivered violently, like he had no control over his own body. The sight made Leo pause. He stood there for a moment, just staring. He could hear his own breathing, see the way the cold air puffed out in front of him. The old man looked up just for a second, and their eyes met. Leo's chest tightened. He knew that look, like someone was lost, just holding on by a thread. Leo walked over, digging through his pocket. He pulled out the loose change he'd earned from cleaning that yard earlier. He crouched down and held it out to the old man. "Here, sir," Leo said, his voice low, almost hesitant. The old man looked at the coins, then at Leo. He didn't take the money. He just shook his head, his eyes distant, lost. "Come on, take it," Leo insisted. "It's not much, but it might help you get something warm." The old man gave a weak smile but still didn't move. His hands remained wrapped around his knees, his fingers bony and shaking. Leo stayed there for another second, feeling a pit forming in his stomach. The man was clearly freezing. The coins wouldn't do anything. Not really. He could hear a car passing by behind him, the sound of tires on the wet road. He could feel his own heart beating faster as he looked at the man's trembling frame. Leo stood up, feeling the cold sink even deeper into his bones as he did. He looked at his own jacket. It wasn't much, but it was warm. It was his only jacket, though, and winter was just getting started. His mom would flip if he showed up without it. She'd worry herself sick, and without it, he'd be out in the cold too. He hesitated, glancing up and down the street. A couple of people passed by, their eyes darting towards the old man and then quickly looking away, like they didn't want to see. Leo chewed on his lip. His fingers brushed the zipper of his jacket. He looked back at the man. His lips were still blue, and his eyes had closed again, like he was trying to block out the cold, maybe the world itself. "Damn it," Leo muttered under his breath. He knelt back down. "Sir, listen." He started unzipping his jacket, feeling the rush of cold air against his chest. He slid it off his shoulders and draped it over the man's back. "You need this more than I do. Just take it, all right?" The old man opened his eyes, blinking at Leo like he couldn't quite believe it. His lips trembled, but no words came out. "It's okay," Leo said, his voice shaking just a little. "I'll be fine. You just stay warm, all right?" The old man's eyes filled with tears. He nodded, his hand coming up to touch the jacket like he couldn't believe it was real. Leo stood back up, his body already shivering from the cold. He hugged his arms around himself, trying to keep in whatever warmth he had left. The sky was getting darker, and he needed to get home. His mom would be worried. He started walking again, faster this time. His teeth chattered. and his feet felt like they were blocks of ice. The cold cut through his thin shirt like a knife, making his skin prickle and tighten. But he kept moving, putting one foot in front of the other, focusing on the sound of his shoes on the pavement. "Hey!" he heard someone shout from behind, but he didn't look back. He didn't want to explain, didn't want anyone to stop him and tell him he was crazy for giving away his only jacket. He just kept moving.